later today, the man accused of placing pipe bombs outside of the headquarters for both the Democrat and Republican national parties on the eve of January 6, 2021, is expected to go before a judge. The court appearance for Brian Cole comes just a day after the FBI says they arrested the 30-year-old man from Woodbridge, Virginia, seen in that photo right there on your screen. Now, the Justice Department did explain that Cole faces explosives charges and could potentially face even more charges as the investigation does continue. The arrest nearly 5 years after it all unfolded, and here is some of what FBI Director Kash Patel had to say after the arrest.
When you attack American citizens, when you attack our institutions of legislation, when you attack our nation's capital, you attack the very being of our way of life. And this FBI and this Department of Justice stand here to tell you that we will always refute it and combat it. We will provide the safest country the nation has ever seen under President Trump's leadership here. And that's what we did here today with great resolve on a case of massive public importance, as it should be. An individual who is now alleged to have placed multiple explosive devices to blow up multiple people and multiple officials, innocent civilians, is now arrested thanks to the brave men and women of the FBI and the interagency.
All right, and that was FBI Director Kash Patel, who was providing that news conference there just yesterday. While the explosives were placed on January 5th, they were discovered, we're told, the following day on January 6, 2021. That's the day that supporters of President Donald Trump rushed inside the U.S. Capitol to protest the results of the 2020 election. An arrest affidavit does state that law enforcement reviewed credit card purchases of pipe bomb components, cell phone tower data, and a license plate reader to zero in on Cole as their suspect. Attorney General Pam Bondi adding that no new tip or witness led to the arrest. It was a fresh set of eyes taking a look at the case and making it a priority. All right, I want to discuss the case in general here, so let's bring in Scott Duffy, former FBI Supervisory Special Agent, to discuss it all. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us this morning.
Yeah, good morning, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And first off, I do want to ask you overall, there's a lot of information here that we have learned from authorities over the last 24 hours or so, but there's a lot we still don't know. What has stood out to you overall about what we know and what we don't?
Yeah, first, listening to the press conferences yesterday by both the Attorney General and the FBI Director, I like hearing that it was not a new tip, even though the FBI poured $500,000 into, anybody out there who was waiting for information or waiting to present that information with the right motive. Here it is. And we've learned that it is fresh eyes, as you had said this morning, taking a look. That's a classic cold case investigation where you put new investigators saying, what do we have that might have been missed, because it is, I can imagine, thousands upon thousands of pieces of information, not only from the forensics, but from the tips that I'm sure had poured in, and you're going through to say, is there something that without a doubt says this person is the person, let's go get him. We're 5 years into this, and almost 5 years to the day, coming up with a suspect that they believe, without a doubt, is their person, where they were able to put handcuffs and execute search warrants. So that kudos to all the investigators.
5 years. I have to imagine at that point, and each case, of course, is its own case. Everything's kind of different depending on the case there, but 5 years, that is quite a while. Is there a point where investigators say we need a fresh set of eyes, we need someone to look at this, especially in a high-profile case like that one?
Yes, and perhaps, with the change of guard and so forth, putting new eyes, new investigators. 5 years is a long time in an investigation. You have investigators that move on, promoted, moving to different divisions. And so thereby you have a case that might be just going through a rotation. I many times in my old office where you have a case that gets put on your desk and you try to take a look at it. You talk to the investigators who had it before, And it's a whole new look. And every investigator, even though we are trained in the steps of investigation, let the evidence speak for itself, and the analysts do their job, and then ultimately the investigator, the case agents, trying to put that those pieces together and say, do we have a named suspect that we can look hard at, right? So I liken it to you're going forward. You're in hot pursuit of somebody. And so thereby you're running after that person. You've seen that person commit the crime. You see their clothing, they turn the corner, and all of a sudden they're in the middle of a marathon. And you're like, who is this person? Where is that person? And they're shedding their outer clothing. I would liken that to this, where they have video camera, they have lots and lots of cell phone tower, they have LPRs, which are your license plate readers. So you have lots of people that they could be looking at. And that person turned the corner and got lost in the crowd. Now they've identified that person, so they're able to backtrack. And it's a wonderful thing when you have a name, and then you're able to say, is the evidence at the scene match to that of the person that we have identified? And seems like here they have.
And I've asked you this question before in the past when we take a look at situations like this one and different high profile investigations. But what role does the public play in a case like this? Because the FBI was very quick to release the surveillance images, the video there that kind of showed all of this as it played out, and they released it over time as well. They wanted to make sure it appeared that the case wasn't forgotten. So we saw one clip of video, and then later we'd see another one from a different angle. So what does the public play in tracking down someone like this and identifying them when investigators don't necessarily know who it is?
Yeah, excellent question. The media and the public play a vital role. So when you have something like this, unlike like even going back to the Boston bomber during the marathon, you have, and there was a bit of a misstep with regards to providing the wrong photos of who they believed were their suspects. And ultimately here, this was a little more unique because you have somebody that is tied to the actual backpacks, the timing, the fact that there weren't many people, if any, in the vicinity. So you were the video that they've obtained here to say, we feel very comfortable. This is our individual who is laying down these pipe bombs. So now, if we can't identify this person through our investigation, we need the help of the public. And this is amazing when you put something out there. I'm sure there were many tips that had come out, and hopefully some of those tips from the public do match with ultimately the suspect they have in custody.
Social media on that same topic there, that can maybe cause some confusion and misinformation that comes out. How does that play a role in all of it when people are sharing that video, but also maybe sharing information that is not correct?
Yeah, correct. Putting their own narratives, right? And that's how we get conspiracy theorists who provide a little bit of truth and then ultimately their own narrative. And the narrative could make sense. It's logical. And so law enforcement is used to this. They have plenty of analysts that guide what they're doing to be able to offer what they need to know. So they're able to separate the conspiracy theorists or just really bad information and stay on point with ultimately the pieces of evidence that they've gathered. Where does that lead them? And does that lead them to the person they've taken into custody yesterday?
What question or questions do you hope might be answered as the day does progress here? We know that the suspect is going to appear in court, which means that we could get even more of the court documents. All of that, of course, kind of up in the air. But as we wait for that, what question or questions do you hope could be answered as the day moved forward?
We always look forward to the motive. If this person is talking to the FBI, hopefully then that has already been obtained and will be released as this goes through the court process. So you ultimately want to identify the motive so we can better understand someone of this nature. Why do this? Why put people in harm's way? And what is your position now? Why has this not happened, at least from what we gather, over the last 5 years? Typically, having had serial criminals, right? You want them to keep committing the crime so you get closer and closer if you don't have an identity. And then ultimately they make a mistake. Here, it seems that nothing has happened from 5 years ago to laying down these pipe bombs to them making an arrest yesterday. It would be interesting to see where has he been and why so dormant up until this time.
I did want to ask you this kind of from your perspective. We've had a lot of legal experts and I've gotten their take, but as someone who is former FBI, I want to get your take on this. What of importance would you say cameras in the court? Now, there's not going to be cameras inside of this courtroom as far as we understand. We are talking about some serious charges, but do you think it's important for cameras to be inside of the courtroom for cases like this that are high profile? I don't know if that's something you've thought about in the past, but I wanted to get your take.
I love that question. And I've debated some very good fellow colleagues, both in the FBI and other departments. I am for cameras in the courtroom. I know that the federal system, the cameras are not there. You typically have your individual who's going to create an animation or some sort of caricature. But I'm a proponent of the cameras in the courtroom, and I think it lends itself to if we have body cams and dash cams on police cars, and everyone else has a cell phone that's capturing what is happening out there real time, then why not let the public see how it unfolds in a courtroom with a juror? Of course, keep the cameras off the jury, keep the cameras off the non-relevant individuals, but allow people to see what is unfolding in a courtroom and to see just how difficult it is. Prosecution side, the defense side, all the arguments. I think it would better educate the public as opposed to just making summary opinions of it.
Yeah, and of course, those sketches I'm sure will come out later today after he does appear in court. Not quite clear what the case is really going to consist of as far as going before the judge, because it should be an arraignment. So it should be kind of fairly cut and dry, where he's read the charges and then enters what will likely be a not guilty plea. And then we set another court date. All right, Scott Duffy, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. Anything we missed? Anything you want to add here before I let you go?
No, I just, again, reiterate kudos to the investigators to bringing fresh eyes and seeing that the evidence was there before them, but it is a trove of evidence, and the right diggers were able to uncover what they needed. So kudos to all those involved in identifying this subject.
All right, Scott, thank you again for being here. We definitely appreciate it.
Thank you.
And of course, do want to remind you here that coming up later today, the suspect, Brian Cole, will appear in court. Now, as we mentioned, we'll get sketches. However, it is a federal courtroom, so cameras will not be allowed inside. Not quite clear if we'll get comments from folks afterward. We know that we've heard after certain court cases there from Janine Pirro, the U.S. attorney for D.C. We might potentially hear from Pam Bondi again, but we'll, of course, keep you updated here as that does play out.